Now it's day 4 of the European parliamentary elections, which kicked off on Thursday the 6th. Today sees the majority of the bloc's 27 nations head to the polls. It's also the first election in which the UK will not participate. Exit polls will be published this evening, but for now, Jamie Smith-Maillet is a freelance journalist. He's in Paris for us now. Jamie, good to speak to you. Let's wind back a little if we could. Perhaps you can briefly explain how the EU elections work.
Yes, good morning, Fiona, from a sunny Paris. So they'll be hoping the sun will be enticing voters out this morning. Yep, so as you said, we're into day 4 of polling, the last day of the elections, in which the 27 member states here who've been participating to cast their votes for the makeup of the next EU parliamentary chamber in Brussels and in Strasbourg. So there's actually about 370 million voters who are eligible to go to the polls across the bloc. And for the new MEPs that will be sitting in Parliament for the 5 years ahead, influencing decisions right across Europe. Today's the biggest electoral day. 20 of the 27 countries going to the polls. And you mentioned there, seats actually have changed from 705 up to 720 since 2019, when, as you said, the UK did last participate. The UK seats actually have been redistributed around the bloc by population. But, well, with all those new seats, who will actually turn up and cast a vote is one of the questions being asked.
And, Jamie, we've been hearing for months here in the UK about the rise of the far-right vote across Europe. What are some of the concerns in institutions in the run-up to the elections?
Yeah, well, I would say there's probably 3 main concerns. You mentioned there the far right. I'd add to that turnout, as I've mentioned briefly there, and also disinformation. In terms of the far right, of course, we are waiting for the final picture this evening. But polls have long time suggested, as you said, a surge in the right or far right candidates, perhaps bringing in a number of parties with a Eurosceptic view as well. Elections, of course, are proportional. And so the national parties will then regroup into their political families or blocs within Parliament, voting along the same lines. So we'll be watching to see the outcome, notably in countries here in France, but also in Germany. On turnout, yeah, it's often a frequent headache, possibly for the institutions. Observers do say, though, that this is the EU as an international organisation. So national politics as well play heavily in influencing the picture, and turnout really does vary from countries like Belgium and Luxembourg with high levels of turnout to Eastern and Central European nations with much less so. 50% turnout roughly in 2019. So can that be beaten in this election?
You're in France, you're in Paris at the moment, Jamie. What's the picture like there and the possible ramifications in France where you are?
Yeah, well, actually, so as I said, exit polls officially tonight, but polling up until this weekend has long suggested that the far-right party, the National Rally, led by Jordan Bardella, perhaps known more so for Marine Le Pen in the UK, will come out top. Now, that would obviously have consequence ramifications for Emmanuel Macron, the president, and the Renaissance Party. They're possibly still fighting for a second position to be confirmed later today, obviously, as the left-wing Socialist Party previously has also been had a resurgence in the polls. So, of course, France is sending 81 seats to the parliament, the highest number after Germany. The consequences, perhaps locally or nationally here in France, I should say, is perhaps sort of political disquiet. In some ways, this is a bit of a midterm test for Macron, who is halfway through his second term in office as president. So it could have national implications.
Jamie, good to speak to you. Thank you so much for bringing us up to date there. Jamie Smith-Maillet, there, freelance journalist. He is in Paris. Exit polls published this evening. Now, as we've been hearing,